been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
If you're sliding DiVincenzo to the one, obviously Terrence Shannon Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish with your midweek edition of the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. We've got lots to recap and preview in Major League Baseball. Today is the final time this season there'll be more than 2 games played. They all begin this afternoon in the division series, and of course, we'll tell you everything that happened last night. We're getting closer to the NFL being back tomorrow night. We'll have a preview of that as well. Simon Applebaum from the podcast Tomorrow Will Be Televised will join us here on the show. Of course, we always have a guest contributor from Sporting News. We take an early look at the big college football slate this week. In addition, Jim Gazzale is with us from Legal Sports Report. Naturally, lots of controversy surrounding some of these division series in Major League Baseball, and that's where we're going to begin here on the show. Is it going to happen again, folks? Are the Dodgers going to get knocked out again in the division series where they're certainly up against it? A wild start to that game last night between the Dodgers and Padres. Grand slams, home runs, Fernando Tatis, Teoscar Hernandez. The score was 6-5 so early on in that game, it went over in like the third inning if you bet on the over there. And the thought process was, hey, maybe there'll be 20 runs scored in this game. But then things started to settle in. Padres end up winning the game 6-5. They take a 2-1 series lead and can wrap up the series at Petco Park. Yes, it is possible the Padres pulled the upset yet again. Meanwhile, one of the more controversial figures in the series has been Manny Machado, third baseman, who used to play on the Dodgers, by the way, now for the San Diego Padres. There was one play in the game in particular where Machado was running towards second base, may have skirted outside of the base paths and created essentially an error that Freddie Freeman threw, went off his helmet, could have meant the win for the Padres and the loss to the Dodgers. So naturally, at the center of controversy, Machado is asked about that play.
Yeah, I mean, just knowing the rules. We've been practicing that all spring training, and finally it came up in a big situation there. So, we were able to create our own lane once the path is, created by the base runner. So, ground ball to Freddie, just trying to make a tough throw for him going to second base. And it's the first time it's ever happened to me. So.
Were you surprised that all the offense was there early on in the game and then pitching just moved from there on out?
Yeah, man, it's postseason. You settle in, and we had a big inning, and they came back and they answered real quick. It's going to be a grind. It's been a grind.
Will it be a grind? We'll find out later tonight. Meanwhile, can the New York Mets pull the upset on the Phillies, I mean, all these teams that had time off after getting the first round bye are not playing well. 7-2 the final. Not a close game, folks. Mets take a 2-1 series lead. They could wrap it up at Citi Field later tonight. Pete Alonso, Jesse Winker, solo home runs. But the story for the Mets has been Sean Manaea out of nowhere. Manaea has been the Mets' best pitcher. 7 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. Manaea has played on several teams throughout his career, but he's having his very best moments in the postseason, which he alluded to after the game.
Sean, how special was it after everything you've been through in your career to have a performance like you did tonight in a game where the stakes were as high as they were?
It's huge. It's haven't had the most, amazing career, but through the ups and downs and through the hardships, it's what makes games like this mean so much. And so proud of the work that I've been able to do, but not just myself. The whole team and everybody that I've been working with. Just put so much time and effort into it, and have results like this is unbelievable feeling.
Meanwhile, in the world of sports broadcasting, and specifically in Major League Baseball, we found out yesterday that 3 more clubs will not be operating under the Bally Agreement, Diamond Sports, in 2025. Those teams are the Cleveland Guardians, Minnesota Twins, and Milwaukee Brewers. Those teams will not be on Bally Sports. Instead, it'll be a direct-to-consumer option for those who want to purchase the broadcast and watch all season long without any blackouts. Also, the Texas Rangers have announced that they are not going to go with Diamond Sports Group and considering a local media option. We knew about this last week. Now let's move over to the National Football League. Some controversy still surrounding the New York Jets one day after they fired Robert Saleh. Apparently, Saleh was wanting to take away some play calling duties from his offensive coordinator, and essentially the passing game coordinator, Todd Downing, would be the play caller with Nathaniel Hackett demoted. Hackett wasn't being fired. Then after the meeting, Saleh found out he was being fired. So go figure there. Now, Saleh did put out a pretty classy statement, I would say, yesterday, late in the day, after he found out that he was gone, saying to the Jets organization, "I'm grateful to have the opportunity to work with so many of incredible people. I will always be appreciative of the love and support from everyone at One Jets Drive. All the players truly love and appreciate every single one of you. Character of the men in the locker room." It's a long statement. I'm going to stop there. Robert Saleh will find himself back in the NFL next season, without question, as a defensive coordinator if he wants to. Meanwhile, with the upcoming game this week between the Buccaneers and Saints, there's a possibility that the Saints will not have their starting quarterback, Derek Carr, this week. Spencer Rattler is a possibility to start in Carr's absence. It looks like that oblique injury is a multi-week injury. If so, Rattler played at a high level in college, but hasn't shown much yet at the NFL level. Buccaneers will play the Saints coming up on Sunday, but they will not be in Tampa Bay as Hurricane Milton is set to strike later this evening. They've already left Tampa and are in New Orleans. And also defensive tackle Christian Walker of the Las Vegas Raiders is going to be out for an extended period of time. He is out indefinitely and had surgery on his what's called a Jones fracture. And also some breaking news from the NFL as the Houston Texans will not have their star wide receiver Nico Collins, who was supposedly week to week or day to day. He was placed on injured reserve earlier this morning. Now let's get to some college football news and notes. The NCAA Division I Council has officially agreed and voted to shorten the transfer window in football and basketball. It's moving from 45 days to 30 days. But they opted against eliminating the spring transfer window. So there's 2 different times that players can transfer: the fall, the spring, still available to those players. Georgia wide receiver Colby Young has been arrested on misdemeanor charges of battery and assault on an unborn child, booked by the Athens-Clarke County Police Department, 4:10 Eastern. Liberty beat FIU in college football last night. They were a big favorite. They didn't cover. FIU takes the money if you bet them. Under 55 comes in. Tonight, not the sexiest of games in college football. New Mexico State, Jacksonville State. If you're betting on that one, Jacksonville State's 20.5-point favorites. All right, now, lots of baseball today. We got a minute to go. Going to try to get through it all. We'll start off Game 3, Guardians and Tigers, 3:08 Eastern. Huge game, deciding game could potentially be for these teams. 5:08 Eastern, it is the decider. If the Mets beat the Phillies, they move on, and the Phillies are out. The game is at Citi Field. The Mets lead the series 2-1. Yankees and Royals are all tied up at 1 in their best-of-5 series. That series tonight is in Kansas City. And then finally, the biggest, by the way, all these games are very close in terms of odds, but the biggest one tonight, folks, the Padres are minus 150 on the money line to take care of business and knock out the Los Angeles Dodgers. That game is the late game this evening. Over in the WNBA, we have the Sun versus the Lynx in the final. And right now, the Lynx advance with an 88-77 win. They'll play Game 1 against the New York Liberty Friday night. The Liberty, a huge favorite, minus 330 on the money line. Congrats to the first game ever for the Utah Hockey Expansion Club. Wins their first franchise game over the Arizona Coyotes. Meanwhile, the defending champion Florida Panthers on banner night, they also get a win, 6-4 in Sunrise. And the St. Louis Blues also on opening night defeat the Seattle Kraken 3-2 in the first game of the slate. That game began at 4:30 Eastern yesterday. For those of you who missed the afternoon action in the NHL. Coming up next, the Red River rivalry is upon us. Texas and Oklahoma, always a shootout and always a showdown. But Texas is the #1 team in the country. Will they get upset like Alabama this week? Bill Bender will join us next and tell us.
We're at a point in time coming off of a wild Saturday of college football. People are consistently peeking over at this board.
He actually would not be my #1 overall pick, nor would I bet him to be the #1 overall pick. I think you got that next wave of NFL players, which is so enticing, which when you see Jaden Daniels come into the NFL and you go, I can get something like that with a guy with just as good an arm.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of a week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
If you're sliding DiVincenzo to the 1, obviously Terrence Cheney Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I think the Washington Commanders are one of the best bets to win it all, or at the very least win the NFC.
Their offensive line, I do want to say one thing. It's very average. The coaching is good. They're getting good coaching from Bobby Johnson, their line coach, here from the Giants. But they've kind of overachieved. Let's call it like it is. Gales has taken them up. Look, that division's not very good, and they could very well win it over the Eagles and the Cowboys. They're not a Super Bowl team.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Bill Bender is with us from Sporting News. If you joined us late last week, Bill and I were talking, and we were both saying, I'm more me than him, I don't want to say this, that, this is not going to be a good week in college football, and there's not a lot of good games. And that was true on paper. And then, Bill, what happened? We saw more upsets in college football than we've seen in 50 years. The playoff is now completely upside down from what we thought it was a week ago. And I guess the question is that a trend that's going to continue, or do you think that was just like a one-off in college football this year.
Oh, I'm guilty of saying all the same things that you did last week about how it being a snoozy weekend and then all of a sudden everybody goes down. I mean, if you look at the SEC, I would just say if this is the NFL light you want, you have it. Texas is the only undefeated team left. There are 8 one-loss teams. There are plenty of room for upheaval to go on in the second half of the season. And I just think this is par for the course in the new era we live in. I mean, do you see a dominant team other than maybe Ohio State and Texas? I'm not sure I do.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, to me, it's wild. And we're going to have a knockout game, by the way, I think in college football this week, but I'll get to that in a minute. So let's start off with the Red River rivalry. So, generally speaking, this game is high scoring and very close. In fact, there's a lot of times in this game, Bill, that either Texas or Oklahoma, by the way, has been up big in these games. And then the other team comes back at the end of the game to cover. Texas is so far superior to Oklahoma. That I know. I'm positive of that. And the line is 14.5, which seems high for a game like this because the total is only 50.5. But I think, Bill, what this speaks to is Oklahoma's offense is brutal. I don't know how many points they're going to be able to score against the Longhorns this week. And I guess that's why the line is what it is.
It's going to be a very similar game to the Michigan game because Oklahoma can play a little bit of defense. They average 2.6 yards per carry allowed around that defense around Danny Stutzman. Texas has Quinn Ewers back or should have Quinn Ewers' team.
All right, fair enough, Bill. Now let's get into some games coming up this week, and Bill will be back with us later in the week to get some official picks here from him. But this is a game we never see. Let's just call it what it is. Ohio State. Fair to say the first true test for the Buckeyes this season, and they are favored and on the road at one of the hardest places to play in the country. 3.5-point favorites, total of 52.5. 2 versus 3. Game of the week, Bill.
Love it. And when you look at this trend of the traditional Pac-12 school in the regular season, their record was 10-31. So, these can be a highly entertaining game.
I do too. All right, Bill, we'll check back later in the week and we'll break it all down against the spread once again and look at some other games as well. Thanks again for coming on NewsWire.
Hey, thank you.
All right, right now, folks, in Las Vegas, we are out there covering G2E, the premier spot to be. Gabriel Lucas tells us what's going on next.
We're at a point in time coming off of a wild Saturday of college football. People are consistently peeking over at this board.
He actually would not be my number 1 overall pick, nor would I bet him to be the number 1 overall pick. I think you got that next wave of NFL players, which is so enticing, which when you see Jaden Daniels come into the NFL and you go, I can get something like that with a guy with just as good an arm.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
I do sliding DiVincenzo to the 1. Obviously, Terrence Cheney Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I think the Washington Commanders are one of the best bets to win it all, or at the very least win the NFC.
Their offensive line, I do want to say one thing. It's very average. The coaching is good. They're getting good coaching from Bobby Johnson, their line coach. Here from the Giants, but they've kind of overachieved. Let's call it like it is. Daniels has taken them up. Look, that division's not very good, and they could very well win it over the Eagles, and the Cowboys. They're not a Super Bowl team.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We're going to check in at the Global Gaming Expo, G2E, in just a minute. Also get a preview of the big game between Ohio State and Oregon. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. The Global Gaming Expo is going on in Las Vegas, G2E, some of the best technology being featured out there. Going to learn a lot more as to what's been going on this week and what we can expect the rest of the week. Let's check in with Gabrielle Lucas, who is covering it for us here at SportsGrid.
Craig, we're at the Global Gaming Expo in the Venetian Expo Center here in Las Vegas, Nevada this week, affectionately known in the industry as G2E. Since 2013, this trade show has consistently brought more than 25,000 folks together that work in and around the gaming industry, and this year is no exception. There are about 400 exhibitors here on approximately 270 square feet of exposition space. The trade show is organized by the American Gaming Association, which SportsGrid is a proud member of, and the expo is a showcase for new technology, games, services, and products. The focus here is clear. The gathering of industry brainpower in this manner encourages innovation and drives growth by bringing all prominent faces of this global industry under one roof. We have partnered with G2E this year to provide media, interviewing some of the biggest executives, celebrities, policymakers, and other notables in the industry, and we are smack dab in the middle of the action. Industry networking events and more than 90 different panel discussions started yesterday and will be going through the week, and the exhibit hall trade show floor open through Thursday. A who's who of the industry notables have descended upon Las Vegas, Craig, and SportsGrid partnership with G2E has placed us in the center of it all.
Thanks, Gabrielle. We'll check back in with Gabrielle tomorrow here on the show. Now let's check into some of the big games in college football. How about Penn State traveling across the country during the regular season in Big Ten fashion? Not something we thought we would ever see. Happy Valley no longer the destination as the Nittany Lions have to figure out how to get to California. I guess they haven't really needed a plane of this magnitude, size, and of course, you need a lot of gas to fly across country. Their head coach, James Franklin, talked about some of the logistics going into the big trip this week.
Yeah, so that's your second part of your question is a big part of us leaving on Thursday is we cannot fly out of state college. So that was a big part of our discussions with the Big Ten when all this thing got started, is not only are we one of the most northeast schools, but based on runway length, size of plane, weight of plane, fuel on plane, we can't get out of here unless we would stop for fuel. So with that, we got to fly out of Harrisburg. So, to me, that's one of the things I think we have to discuss is increasing the size of the runway here and the size of the airport for a lot of reasons, for the university, for the community, for businesses, for the athletic department, and for us now that we've, decided to make this move as a Big Ten. To me, that's something that we need to do for a lot of different reasons.
Logistics all across the country this week, in Florida as well, with the pending hurricane coming up. Well, logistics won't need to be the case this week once they get there. Ohio State taking on Oregon, two teams in the top 5 facing off. Let's get a preview of the big game with Ben Stevens.
The game of the year so far in the Big Ten, and perhaps another game of the year in the 2024 college football season. It's 2 versus 3. Saturday night in Eugene, inside Autzen Stadium. 3rd-ranked Oregon hosts 2nd-ranked Ohio State, but it's the road team, the Buckeyes, being booked as the favorite. When this line opened up in the summer, it was a near pick'em, too close to call. Now, after 6 weeks of this college football season, Ohio State enters Autzen as a 3.5-point road favorite. This is the first time that the Ducks under Dan Lanning, who became the head coach in Eugene to start 2022, have been booked as a home underdog. In fact, it is the first time Oregon has been a home dog inside Autzen Stadium since 2018. The game of the year in the Big Ten. Craig Mish, back to you.
All right, thanks very much, Ben. Looking forward to all the college football coming up later this week. We'll also get a preview of the NFL games and the contest with Brady Cannon of SportsGrid later in the week. All right, we'll take a quick time out here on NewsWire. Coming up next, will sports betting be legalized within the next month in the state of Missouri? They are on deck. Will it actually happen? We'll check in with Jim Gazzale of Legal Sports Report to get the very latest on that, as well as Simon Applebaum. He joins us later in the show to discuss the latest Major League Baseball team contracts for broadcast.
We're at a point in time coming off of a wild Saturday of college football. People are consistently peeking over at this board.
He actually would not be my number one overall pick, nor would I bet him to be the number one overall pick. I think you got that next wave of NFL players, which is so enticing, which when you see Jaden Daniels come into the NFL and you go, I can get something like that with a guy with just as good an arm.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoff.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was Lincoln! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
I do sliding DiVincenzo to the one. Obviously, Terrence Cheney Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I think the Washington Commanders are one of the best bets to win it all, or at the very least win the NFC.
Their offensive line, I do want to say one thing. It's very average. The coaching is good. They're getting good coaching from Bobby Johnson, their line coach, here from the Giants. But they've kind of overachieved. Let's call it like it is. Daniels has taken them up. Look, that division's not very good, and they could very well win it over the Eagles and the Cowboys. They're not a Super Bowl team.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. The head coach of the New England Patriots, Gerard Mayo, just met with the media, made it official. Drake May is going to start this week. Jacoby Brissett goes to the bench, something that we reported here yesterday, made official today. All right, let's bring in Jim Gazzale from LegalSportsReport.com. And Jim, we're getting closer and closer to the big day in November. I know that there's certainly a lot of momentum and a lot of money going toward this possibility of Missouri legalizing sports betting this year.
Yeah, we're inside of a month now at this point, Craig, and the money seemingly continues to flow in on both sides of that Missouri sports betting ballot question that the voters will be faced with in the first few days of November. So on Monday, we saw FanDuel contribute another $5 million in favor of legalized sports betting in Missouri. And on the flip side of that, we saw Caesars contribute nearly $3.5 million against the legalization effort happening in Missouri. So for FanDuel, that $5 million brings it on par with its rival DraftKings in terms of campaign contributions in favor of legalized Missouri sports betting. Each of those popular sports books has now contributed just shy of $16 million apiece. On the opposition side for Caesars, industry sources have told a handful of us at Legal Sports Report over the last couple of weeks that Caesars is not in favor of the ballot question language, specifically the untethered licenses that would be available should this ballot question pass in November. So they're throwing money behind the opposition effort. $3.3 million they contributed on Monday from the third of three of their land-based casinos in Missouri. So now each of their land-based casinos has now contributed individually over $3 million, bringing the total both for and against in terms of overall campaign contributions to about $44 million. So certainly a lot of money behind this initiative, this effort to legalize sports betting in Missouri. Both gubernatorial candidates in the Show Me State have both signaled their support for legalized sports betting. The most recent polling that we've seen shows 52% of support for legalized Missouri sports betting. Around 23% of voters there still undecided, according to the latest polling. So, like you said off the top, Craig, a couple of weeks left. We'll see if more money comes in and some additional polling we're expecting here as we wind down to that ballot question of whether or not to legalize Missouri sports betting coming up in the first couple of days in November.
Yeah, it'll be a big month for us and for, of course, everyone at LSR covering this story as well. All right, news in from Louisiana, and boy, it is a tale as old as time. People still love betting on those parlays, Jim, right? Like this is, I mean, that's pretty much been the story of sports betting in 2024 with all of the revenue that's come in with these parlays and same game parlays. We didn't get any new states to legalize sports betting, so this is probably it.
Yeah, and it's really the same old story with Louisiana. And to your point, you know, the growth of these parlays that we've seen over the last year, 18 months or so, you know, I think Louisiana is really a good picture of the overall scope of just how popular and how successful the popular combo wagers are, especially for the sports books. In August in Louisiana, $13 million was lost by bettors on parlays. That was 57% of overall sportsbook revenue for the month in Louisiana, and that came on the heels of July, which saw 65% of total revenue for the sportsbooks. So they're winning 65% in July came strictly from parlays. Now, the market is showing growth overall, both in handle and in revenue, largely because of those parlays. And we've seen over the last handful of months, a lot of these sportsbook executives talking about the development of the parlay product, the enhancements of the pricing models that they use, which is ultimately benefiting them and making it harder to win these sort of lottery ticket type of parlay bets that have grown in popularity. What we've seen even with ESPN Bet, specifically.
I think we may have lost Jim. Is that accurate? Okay. We'll try to get back to Jim in just a minute. First, let's recap some of the top stories going on across Major League Baseball. We have a big deciding game tonight between the Padres and Los Angeles Dodgers. In case you missed it yesterday, final 6-5. Padres end up winning that one, and we'll get back to some baseball news and notes with Simon Applebaum in just a few minutes. All right, Jim, we lost you there for a minute, and let you know what, we only have a couple of minutes, so let's move right on here and get to the latest in horse racing. Naturally, I know you follow this very closely. Sports handle being down a little bit. The Breeders' Cup, of course, is coming up fast and furious, and then we'll be right back to the Triple Crown Challenge next year. Let's learn more about the handle of the Breeders' Cup and some of the post times really to blame potentially for this.
Yeah, and it's something interesting that really happened last year, and we're seeing this in the last couple of years where the growth of college football on Saturdays has really chewed into a lot of the national broadcasts when it comes to horse racing. So the Breeders' Cup World Championships coming up in November, and we saw last year a college football contract with NBC forced the marquee race of Breeders' Cup weekend to be earlier in the afternoon. couple that with the Pacific time that the races were being held at just outside of Los Angeles, and the operators, the horse betting apps saw a significant decrease when for those last two races that were not on national TV. So just last week, the Breeders' Cup announced post times for this upcoming year's World Championships coming up November 1st and 2nd, again out in San Diego. So we're going to have that Pacific time frame working against the Breeders' Cup. And there's going to be, again, a handful of races after that marquee, the Breeders' Cup Classic, that marquee race that typically drives a lot of the betting handle. Now, those races coming after that, again, not on national TV because the broadcast partner has a deal with college football. And obviously, we're not kidding ourselves here. College football drives more ratings, drives more sports betting handle than horse racing does and has done in the last couple of years. But it's just an interesting trend to see that these broadcast deals are forcing the marquee race to be really at a suboptimal time. And last year we saw it significantly cut into handle. We're expecting the same thing to happen again this year. It'll just be interesting to see just how much it cuts into that handle. And then ultimately next year, I think they haven't announced it yet, but the expectation is that the Breeders' Cup will return to the Eastern time zone, either in New York or potentially Kentucky. And we'll see just how that plays into the dynamics of wagering and timeframes and scheduling and all of that just kind of rolled into those fall weekends where obviously football is king, Craig.
Makes sense. Jim, thanks again for coming on the show today. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, you too.
All right, coming up next, could we see a new college basketball tournament coming your way in 2025? Simon Applebaum will weigh in to see if that is indeed the case. You're watching NewsWire on SportsGrid. We'll be back right after this.
We're at a point in time coming off of a wild Saturday of college football. People are consistently peeking over at this board.
He actually would not be my number one overall pick, nor would I bet him to be the number one overall pick. I think you got that next wave of NFL players, which is so enticing, which when you see Jaden Daniels come into the NFL and you go, I can get something like that with a guy with just as good an arm.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of a week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
I do a sliding DiVincenzo to the one. Obviously, Terrence Cheney Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I think the Washington Commanders are one of the best bets to win it all, or at the very least win the NFC.
Their offensive line, I do want to say one thing. It's very average. The coaching is good. They're getting good coaching from Bobby Johnson, their line coach, here from the Giants. But they've kind of overachieved. Let's call it like it is. Daniels has taken them up. Look, that division is not very good, and they could very well win it over the Eagles and the Cowboys. They're not a Super Bowl team.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Simon Applebaum joins us as he does every week. His podcast tomorrow will be televised. It's available on Blog Talk Radio and also wherever you download podcasts. And Simon, welcome into the show. We have plenty to get to this week. I know we're following the G2E conference out in Las Vegas. I know we're going to get a lot of news from there. And SportsGrid, of course, very important partner out there, too. We'll have some content coming for you the rest of the week. But, Simon, naturally, a lot of news in your neck of the woods as well.
Absolutely, Craig. Good to be with you. We got Advertising Week New York happening as we speak, a couple blocks from here. And in fact, we're talking about, well, when we get to the College Football Crown Conference, that's where Fox Sports unveiled it yesterday. And yes, it is for real. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But going into the big story you referred to earlier about baseball, it's really becoming a soap opera in terms of whether Diamond Sports, Bally Sports gets out of bankruptcy. As we mentioned last week, 11 Major League Baseball teams found out in very surprising fashion that if they do not lower their payments to Bally Sports or Diamond Sports who got a bankruptcy, they will not be running there. Well, Major League Baseball announced yesterday that 3 of those 11 teams that are impacted, the Cleveland Guardians, the Minnesota Twins, and the Milwaukee Brewers, they will now, MLB will now produce their games next year. The question is, where will they go? Will they go to smart TV sets and devices? Will they go to broadcast stations or both? We don't know yet. And we told you last week about the Texas Rangers and that they were taking matters in their own hands. Well, yes, they made that official yesterday. They are taking matters in their own hands. They're going to form their own regional sports network. And on top of that, we have another possible situation, which is that once Bally Diamond Sports comes out of bankruptcy to restart their regional sports networks, FanDuel may be involved to some capacity, whether it is becoming FanDuel Sports, getting the naming rights, whether it may be a sports betting on television deal, whether it's something in between. We don't know yet. FanDuel hasn't said anything since these reports came out in the last day or two. And we don't know how this is going to impact FanDuel, television, TV Plus. They're already emerging. They're already TV services on the air. So a lot to go with this opera going on in regional sports networks. One other baseball note, ESPN announced that their wild card playoff run last week, the games were running on ABC, ESPN, ESPN2. They averaged 2.8 million viewers a pop. The Mets game, the final game of that wild card playoff series, at the highest point, 5.7 million. The average, by the way, is 25% above last year.
Big news for baseball to get better ratings there, of course. Now, college basketball always does very well, and they do very well in the ratings during March Madness. But Fox Sports, as you mentioned, Simon, have a brand new tournament coming. I'd love to hear and understand what the dynamics of this are.
Absolutely. It's called the College Basketball Crown. This is the big story that's come out of Advertising Week here in New York so far. It was announced with Fox Sports people and people from AEG. That's the entertainment rights company that does all sorts of events. They put this deal together with Fox. It's going to be a 16-team tournament. It will run between the regional final weekend of the NCAA March Madness and the Final Four Saturday. It's going to be 16 teams that are elite from the Big East, Big 10, Big 12, all the major college basketball conferences, and maybe some at-large teams as well. It's a 16-team tournament, and I think this is, why Fox, which, by the way, the games will be on both Fox and FS1 on cable and satellite and smart TV sets and devices. And why Fox is doing it is they see an opening here. They know that for years ESPN has run the NIT, the National Invitation Tournament. They don't publish it, they don't publicize it, they don't market it, and that's why it doesn't do very well in viewership or in the ratings. They think by putting together this tournament with the major college conferences involved that they'll have the marketing expertise, they'll have the advertising sales expertise and contacts, and more importantly, they will have the viewership loyalty, because what they do with college basketball regular season, that they can turn this into a winner off the bat.
Wow. Will be fascinating to see if college basketball can capitalize on that. Now, let's get to this latest documentary, so to speak, or mini-series on Prime Video, and Game 7, the most exciting time in sports, Simon, in the NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball when we get there. This should be a fun watch.
I think so, too. And once again, it shows that these mega content services, Netflix, Prime Video in particular, they are really heavy into sports documentary specials and miniseries. Game 7 is the new one from Prime Video. It launches on October 22nd. It's a 5-episode show, and it's all about famous Game 7s of basketball playoffs, pro basketball, hockey, and baseball. And guess what the opening one is? New York Yankees, Red Sox from way back when. and there'll be Edmonton Oilers one coming up right afterward on the second week. I think it's going to be an amazing show with all the footage. They'll do interviews with the people involved, the coaches, players, and so forth. And by the way, also, today, Netflix has their own new documentary miniseries called Starting Five, which deals with the starting five players, I believe, in basketball. So we have this little tete-a-tete between Netflix and Prime Video in terms of Game 7 versus Starting Five. Should be a lot of fun. But again, Game 7 starts on Prime Video on October 22nd.
Gotcha. All right, coming up soon. All right, Ad Week in New York. Let's get the highlights real quick, Simon, before you go.
First, Monday, had a panel with Ion Sports talking about women's sports. We found out that eight of their WNBA games had more than 1 million viewers, which is great for them. They're very excited about what they're doing with the WNBA and the National Women's Soccer League. DeVar Hamlin did a very unique panel with the American Heart Association yesterday. I heard it was packed. We had Michael Strahan also talking about his production company, Smack Entertainment. Coming up right after this program, we're going to be going back to Ad Week. Telly, the smart TV set maker, is going to have 2 special events. Maybe we'll see if they're going to finally do that sports betting app and whether they'll be offering their free set to millions of people starting later this fall. And also tomorrow, we're going to hear from Steve Merriman, former NFL player. He's got a brand new sports network called Lights Out Sports. They'll be playing on smart TV sets and devices. So we'll hear all about that. But a lot of sports stars are all over Ad Week over at Penn District here.
All right. And real quick, I know that there's an update here on this new free live sports mega channel that people just randomly found on their TV sets over the last month.
Yes, over the last week. Kathy Rasenberger, who's one of the partners on our show tomorrow, will be televised on Friday. Saw her last night at a special event. They're now saying they will have over 100 channels by the end of this month. Gamification is going to be a major deal. They are not going to get involved with regional sports networks right now, but they are going to get involved with new sports leagues and existing sports leagues to see if they can put their channels on. So free live sports is off the block and doing well so far.
All right. Great stuff, Simon. As always, have a great rest of your week. Thanks for coming on NewsWire.
You're welcome, Craig. Be great. And to everybody out in Florida, please be great. Stay safe.
Yes, thank you very much, Simon, for that. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with the state of Florida, there is a hurricane headed our way, Hurricane Milton. I live in South Florida on the east. Hopefully, I'll be with you here tomorrow.
We're at a point in time coming off of a wild Saturday of college football. People are consistently peeking over at this board.
He actually would not be my number 1 overall pick, nor would I bet him to be the number 1 overall pick. I think you got that next wave of NFL players, which is so enticing, which when you see Jaden Daniels come into the NFL and you go, I can get something like that with a guy with just as good an arm.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of a week-to-week-to-week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoff.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
I do sliding DiVincenzo to the 1. Obviously, Terrence Cheney Jr., that is actually dynamic offensively and defensively. So we'll see how it works. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress. Do both teams win? Yes. I don't think at the end of the day, Minnesota could have afforded to keep Cat, Rudy, and Ant with that amount of money.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I think the Washington Commanders are one of the best bets to win it all, or at the very least win the NFC.
Their offensive line, I do want to say one thing. It's very average. The coaching is good. They're getting good coaching from Bobby Johnson, their line coach. Here from the Giants, but they've kind of overachieved. Let's call it like it is. Daniels has taken them up. Look, that division's not very good, and they could very well win it over the Eagles, and the Cowboys. They're not a Super Bowl team.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Lots of controversy around college football. A lot of upset feelings from teams this past week that got upset, with teams storming the field and things of that nature, fans storming. We'll get to that as well, and we got plenty to get to here. So let's wrap it up in style with a little SportsGrid, and we're going to get into it right now. All right, time now for Last Licks. I got the SportsGrid 60, the SportsGrid Sound Off, Last Licks. Sometimes they all merge in together with all these different shows that I did. So, funny moment for me there. All right, Hurricane on my mind too. Okay, so the Florida Panthers are the hottest ticket in the NHL right now. Who would have said that 2 years ago? I mean, it would have been impossible to say. I mean, the Panthers were so anonymous for so long. All of a sudden, they get to the finals last year. They win the championship. Panthers season tickets, not just to the games, not just like random games. Season tickets sold out for the first time in history. They, of course, captured their first championship last season. They got their first win last night. And this is the first time since it's been sold out since they played in the old Miami Arena. Miami and Sunrise are like worlds apart, like 45 minutes apart. Pavel Bure was a player back then. It was like around their expansion time when they first got a hockey team and, of course, didn't win for a long period of time. They did get to the finals against Colorado many, many years ago. We're talking 25 years ago. But this is really cool to see. And by the way, in a city that has the Miami Heat, the Miami Dolphins, Miami FC with Messi, it is the Panthers that are playing out west as the most popular team in all of South Florida. And I guess that's what happens when you end up winning a championship. So congratulations to them. That's where we'll begin. All right, now let's get to some college football as well. How about this? This is ugly. A Michigan football staffer, after their loss against Washington, decided that it'd be a good idea to interact with their fans who were harassing, they're saying, our players by using over-the-top and offensive language. How many times have we seen this happen before? Now, I don't know, and I wasn't there, and I'm sure, let's just be honest, that Huskies fans were probably sticking it to Michigan and probably saying a lot of things that they shouldn't have said. But the last thing that these guys in college football want to do is get in the face of these fans. You do not want to do that ever. It's easy for me to say, and it's got to be really hard listening behind you and hearing this sort of stuff. But here is the official quote from the University of Michigan. Our staff members should have asked the stadium staff to handle it in a manner, then act in the emotional manner, which he did at this time. This is disappointing, and we will handle the matter internally as a program. I guess it's easy for me to say that if your kids are getting yelled at, take the high road, don't get involved. But, I mean, time and time again, these staffers, these people who were involved with the schools are getting themselves in trouble for this stuff. Either way, don't know what's going to happen, but given the fact that basically nothing happened to Jim Harbaugh and they made a documentary on this guy, Connor Stallions, I'm imagining everything will be okay as this member of the University of Michigan. All right, are you playing in a survivor pool? Do you know what a survivor pool means? It means you pick games in the NFL each week. You take one team simply to win. You can't use that same team twice. Well, Circa has their own contest that has $14 million up for grabs. And 479 people out of 14,000 are left. Folks, we are not into week 6 in a survivor pool and less than 1% of the people are left in this pool. I mean, this is insane. And by the way, usually at the end of the survivor pools, especially these big ones like Circa, you have several winners at the end of the year. And so let's say you have 5 or 6 or 7, you chop it up. Folks, there are 221 people left out of 14,000 people. There's going to be one survivor, I think, at the end of the season. We're only in week 5 of the NFL. So is Joe Ranieri still? I asked this question last week. Is Ranieri out? Is he still in? I was trying to figure. I know he made it through week 3. Somebody's got to give me an answer on that. All right, that will do it for the show. I want to thank everybody for listening and watching, however you are consuming us, as they say these days. Thanks again to our guest contributors on the program, and that is Simon Applebaum and also Bill Bender and Jim Gazzale. Thanks to Luke for all of his work today, doing it all, producing, directing, I think. I don't know. Did he direct too? Or producing and directing this show today. Give that guy a raise. All right. That'll do it for the show. I'm Craig Mish. Stay safe, everybody in Florida. I hope to see you tomorrow, same time, same place, on our next edition of NewsWire. Have a great day.